Hi, Mr. Lizzie. We're doing our
film review
on Still Alice. So our summary included that it's a film that we follow an accomplished female researcher and educator through her diagnosis with early onset Alzheimer's, and it proves to be spreading rapidly. And we watch as she slowly notices more signs of the Alzheimer's alongside her family, and they help deal with her
as she copes.
Yeah, that's what I meant. That sounded rude. And
no, you're fine.
Just as it takes its course over the several years that it was throughout the movie.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And the second question was identify and discuss the relevant psychological concepts as portrayed in the film. And I think we mainly talked about family dynamics, coping mechanisms, identity, impact on mental health, cognition, and obviously the emphasis on memory. Throughout the film, we see Alice try to grasp her diagnosis with cognition and ultimately see her struggle with her mental health and identity. Due to the pride she had in her articulation, knowledge, and accomplishments. I think we see that a lot when she made a speech at the Alzheimer's convention. And we also compared it to Elizabeth Loftus, who we researched a couple weeks ago, I think.
Months
ago? Really? Oh my god, I don't know. Yeah. And we theorized about the idea of memory and its value to a certain point when you can't remember it versus to having the disease and just being forced to not remember anything. So we just thought it was like a cool comparison that connects to us.
The next one was evaluate the accuracy and realism of the portrayal of Alzheimer's disease in the film. Since it's kind of a rare case for the early onset compared to the late onset, there were some factors for Alice that aren't common in others. We noticed that hers was kind of faster paced. I think we came to the conclusion that it was over the course of, I think, less than 2 years.
Yeah, because pregnancy and stuff.
Yeah, because it was like the months before the pregnancy that they were trying to get pregnant, and then fast forward a couple months, and then 9 months, and then more. So like less than 2 years, in our opinion. Mm-hmm. So that was more fast-paced compared to other cases that we did research on, and it usually takes course over several years instead of just 2. But in other rare cases, it can be faster than the late onset Alzheimer's, and the symptoms we saw in the film versus other cases are realistic, but it's just the pace that kind of makes it a little unrealistic for us through what we researched.
Yeah. And in the explore of the portrayal of the family dynamics, which we kind of mainly just talked about family dynamics in this question, and not the previous 2 questions, was because there was just a lot to cover. Because, Alice and her family have obtained the American dream. If you know, you know. And we quickly watch as she kind of loses it all and how her family kind of has to deal with this loss. Well, not a loss, but just, it can count as one. And we kind of see how each of her family members plays a certain role during her decline. Like Lydia, her youngest daughter, becomes almost a full caretaker at the end and seems to be the most understanding of the disease. And then we talked about how in the dinner scene, I think Lydia's talking about her show and the location of it, and Alice keeps asking the location, and she asks like twice. And Anna's getting super annoyed, and she's like, it's fine, she doesn't have to remember a thing, she doesn't have to. And Anna's like, no, if it makes her like worry less and still feel like her past self, like as a person in this family, she should be able to remember if she wants to, or write it down. And Anna and Tom, they're obviously in the film and they make their appearances and they have their comments and opinions, but we kind of see that they have their own life that they're carrying on with because they have other, things they're tied to, like med school or trying to have a baby. Yeah. And sorry. And we also talked about her husband, hi Andrew, and how he kind of was enveloped into his career, which I thought was really weird, personally.
Yeah.
Like,
we'll talk about this in our personal.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Sorry, let me shut. And we also talked about how it can be disheartening watching from her point of view, just kind of seeing that they have to like deal with her put her in a home or whatever they decide to do. But we also understand it from the family's point of view, because what else can you do? It's hard to imagine being in a situation. So in our other question, discuss any ethical dilemmas presented in the film. We mainly talked about, some normal ones like medication, how to proceed, caretaking, and Alice's future. Like the medication, it wasn't really a major discussion, but it is an ethical dilemma that you have to face, especially if you're losing memory. Like, for example, the bathroom scene when she, pees on herself, that some medication might make you pee more. It's just a conversation that a family needs to have, especially if they're not fully with her or as observant. And another one was, the how to proceed. Her husband was in denial at the beginning, and he kind of just didn't seem like he knew what to do, or just didn't want to tell like their children, and just couldn't accept it, like the 5 stages of grief we were talking about. And the caretaking was a major debate. They hired Elena while her husband kind of buried himself into work and her kids were busy.
Until Lydia came around towards the end of it, and took on the position to be her full-time caretaker.
Yeah, and we also had the big dilemma, I think, which was the biggest, that what to do with her after he moved to Minnesota, if she was going to go to home. To me, it kind of seemed like he was also mentioning topics of like a self-induced suicide or medically induced. So I think that's a major dilemma that all of those that people have to face in real life.
And I think it was also him trying to get Alice to move with him, and saying to start a new life, but everything that she knows and is trying to remember is back where they live now. And getting her to move is just not really the best option for either of them or any of them. With like the family all around that area, they'd be hours drive.
Especially because I think she realized that she was on a time clock. It was not gonna remember anything, so she wanted to like have her final years of conscious memory there.
Yeah.
And he just wasn't understanding. Anyways.
So the personal reflections the film had on us, I would say that it's a scary thing, because watching the movie and seeing like the smallest signs show up like over the course of months is kind of just terrifying. And checking in with family, I think I'll be doing that soon when I see them all. But I don't know, if it runs in the family, that's definitely a scarier cause, but I'm not sure if it does for me. But
yeah, I think we talked about the fear. I think we're both very scared. I watched this with my parent, or with my dad, and we talked about it. It doesn't run in my family. Obviously, it might not just be a gene thing, or if we meet a future partner. I think kind of hit home for me as well, because I have people close to me that have like medical disabilities, I guess, that I probably will have to make some of these similar decisions as Alice's family. So just very scary, and I think we both hope that we don't have to face this type of situation in our personal life and future. So
before we do the letter grade, I just want to mention the strategies that Alice used in hers. It kind of goes back to the realistic part of it, but like she used her phone to write down questions to answer every day. She got the highlighter when she was giving that speech to know what she went through already. And she did like games on her phone and sticky notes. And she made that video about the pills and what to do. So that was kind of like the suicide part of it, which also brings up the part that the rate for suicide is up by 53% for people with Alzheimer's. So it's definitely not in a good place for them. But that's kind of more realistic things that kind of relates to the research in the movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
For our film review,
we gave it a B+, A-, kind of in that range.
There were some things we both would have preferred to know. What became of Alice and her children, if Lydia was negative or positive for Alzheimer's, if Anna started showing signs, how Alice's husband dealt with her absence in his new job in Minnesota, And ultimately, Tom's thinking, since he was the only one confirmed to be negative, and how he could deal with some of the stuff in the future if he wanted to.
Yeah, and not to mention how he would most likely assume some type of responsibility with Lydia and Anna, because since she was positive.
Mm-hmm.
And
we don't know about Lydia yet.
Yeah. And the brother, what's his name?
Tom,
yeah. We talked about it.
Yeah.
And since the father won't be alive in who knows how long, they can't really consult with him, and it just leaves us wanting to know more about the disease and
what would happen to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of just a scary thing
Yeah.
all families to go through in something like this. And no one knows how to deal with it on the spot. Like when it first comes up, you kind of just have to learn what works for you.
And, you know, people, they obviously have the most appropriate health care because they were comfortable and well off, had the American dream.
Yep.
And that's just not reality, I guess, for other people.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I felt very, like, unsatisfied, I guess, by the ending. I feel like people first learning about the disease and they watch that movie, they're not going to get, like, a good picture of how Alice will be and how her family will be.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Did you have any thoughts?
I think those were mine too.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Hope you enjoyed the video.